Well, hello everyone. This is Dr. Shelley Plum. I'd like to welcome you all back to From the Hip. This is an exciting day today because we are going to talk about something that I love to talk about. We're going to talk about movies. We're going to talk about films. Now, I was thinking about it this morning, and there has been so much change in the film industry. I mean, you think about it. If you look at films that were produced 15 years ago and you look at the ones that are out now, there is such a huge difference. So we are so excited to have a film expert with us today. We have Joe Lamia. Now, Joe has studied at FAU, Florida Atlantic University, and he is the floor director for News Channel 5. And we are excited to have him on with us. We're going to talk about the film industry, and we're going to talk about the trends that are out there now. So stay tuned. We will be right back. Welcome to PlumbTalk Productions, a full-service production company based in West Palm Beach, Florida. Business owners know that every second of the day is a unique opportunity to reach out to an audience and make an impact. Which marketing options do we dive into and spend our hard-earned dollars? Here at PlumbTalk Productions, we have done our research and we can sum it up all in one word: video. How powerful is video? Well, let's look at some percentages. How about 64%? After watching a video, 64% of users are more likely to buy a product or service online. 100%. YouTube reports that mobile video consumption rises 100% every year. How about 200%? It has been documented that video and email leads to 200 to 300% increase in click-through rates. Oh yes, audiences are most certainly expecting more and expecting it faster. In a day and age when people are overwhelmed with facts and time is limited, they want information in real time. They want it immediately. Video is the perfect medium for that. PlumbTalk Productions is a full-service production company dedicated to helping you find your voice in an efficient, competent, and creative manner through video. What do? The sky is the limit, really. We are pleased to offer many services, from on-location shoots to promotional video and customized Facebook Live video. If you can dream it, we can stream it. That's what we say, and that is the truth. Are customers paying attention? People ask us that all the time. Oh yes, the customers are certainly paying attention to video. That is why we must, as business owners, make every second count and increase revenue through the power of video. At PlumbTalk Productions, we can do this fast and affordably with the quality our consumers expect. So, reach out. Reach out now. We're easy to reach through our website at PlumbTalkProductions.com. Call us at 561-855-0764. Don't wait. Now is the time for video. We are dedicated to helping you make every moment count. Well, hey everyone, we are back and we are here with our film expert. We are here with Joe Lamia. How are you, Joe?
I'm doing fantastic.
We're thrilled to have you here today. We really are, because films are so uplifting, or they can be.
Yes.
You know, so let's talk about some trends. Let's talk about, you know, what we were talking about before, the difference between films years ago and films now. What are the differences you're seeing?
Today's day and age, it's all about the comic book movies.
Is that right?
Yes, because you take a look back to when I say the trend would start back in 2009 when Iron Man first came out. Okay. That was with Robert Downey Jr., and then they started the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe. So now every year people are expecting it to come out more and more and more, and that's like the trend now. They're doing more comic book stuff. It's kind of going into sort of what we would call the nerdy territory, so to speak, because it's comic books. It's also you got now they're starting to see like Japanese sort of animation starting to turn into live action now. You have, let's see, it's like horror movies now are becoming the major trend, because you're seeing more of that. I mean, you just had Jordan Peele, who was like on Key and Peele on Comedy Central. He did this movie called Get Out, which has gotten massive praise. That's out right now, isn't it? It is. Yes, and I haven't actually seen it yet, but my son saw it and said that some of the effects were incredible, even with a film like that. Yes. Yes. And it also, it's like one of the, it's one of those movies where it's like very classic storytelling. And horror-wise, I mean, it's not like jump out scary, like where you're expecting like to be scared. It's got like a creepy vibe to it, but at the same time, it's trying to tell a story, and it has that whole black and white sort of trend, because race has become like such a popular topic in our culture nowadays.
Right, it's true.
It's sort of transcended into, okay, let's tell more stories about that, because that's what's going to get people interested, and it's also the little in the little things that you don't even realize until after you've seen the movie that people bring up and say, "Hey, did you know that this happened and this happened in the movie?" It's like, no, I had no idea.
Right.
It's sort of become this thing now where popular movies, the more you see them and the more interaction that people get with it, and social media and the internet now has completely changed, because you go back 15 years ago.
Yes.
Let's take Titanic, for example.
Okay. All right.
97, that was the biggest movie probably in the 90s. Everyone was talking about it. It was like the biggest trend.
It was a big deal. I remember that. Yes.
It was. I was forced to see this at 7 years old. I was not ready for it. But at the same time, that it went for about a year, and everyone was expecting it to win at the Oscars.
Right.
But it was sort of the okay, biographical movies were the trend in the 90s. It was Titanic was like a romance movie, and back then it was very the romantic style. It was like you sort of had that trend where it's like, the more romantic it gets, the more likely people are going to go see it. That was sort of, everybody was so in tune to the love story.
Yes.
15 years later, it's now just action and, death and like gruesome, like horror death now.
Right.
It's more of, it feels more like it's like you go there just for the entertainment, and it's like what I call popcorn flicks.
Okay.
Popcorn flicks are like, you don't really, I mean, you realize it's bad and it's kind of corny, but at the same time, you're there just for their entertainment purposes.
Right.
So it's, the trend now is mostly just, it's not like how it was 15 years ago where it was all Oscar-worthy type candidate movies. I mean, you get them still today, but they're just not talked about as much. You take a look at all the Best Picture candidates that came out this year. Until La La Land came around, nobody was talking about any of the other ones.
Right.
That was the very shameful part. And you have people doing top 10 lists, and they're like, "Well, how come you didn't put any of the Marvel movies on there? Where's where the comic book stuff?"
That's fascinating, isn't it? Because from what I'm hearing from you, the trend has gone from, and forgive me if I'm oversimplifying this, but more of a story. Way back when, and maybe romance, and now it's more action and more horror based. And do you think that coincides with the advances that have happened in special effects?
Yes, technology has definitely changed the way we look at movies now. You go back to when Lord of the Rings came out back in the early 2000s. I mean, that completely changed how movies were done, because you had more computers. Reliance on technology in movies was really becoming a thing, and then you started to see it grow more and more and more, to the point now where if you don't do it, it boggles the mind, so to speak. So you see more of these high technological movies nowadays. It's like May through August is the summer movie season, so that's like the perfect time to do it, because that's when everybody starts going. Everybody's off from school. Most people, like most teachers, are off from work. All kids are going to see these things.
Right.
It's massive. And I think as technology keeps growing and growing, you're going to start seeing more and more in that. And I think also we can't forget at some point, you got to also remember, it's like, while that's great and all, there's still a story to be told. If you don't have the story,
that is true.
It's not going to be as good.
You know what? Because for me personally, it's that story that really enables me to leave feeling good, if that makes any sense.
Yes, I completely agree.
Yes.
I'll give an example.
Okay.
Manchester by the Sea was a movie that came out last year. One of the best stories that was told last year. Casey Affleck probably had the best performance that I've ever seen in this decade.
Really?
And the one thing that I got from people was, I'm not going to see this movie because it's too emotional.
Oh, really?
The people are like, well, somebody told me that it was too depressing. I don't want to go to a movie to be depressed. I want to go to a movie to be entertained.
Oh,
so, I mean, while the story is great and all, there are some people that just don't want to go see it because it's too emotional. It's too much like real life. They're using it as a way to escape reality rather than trying to learn more about life, because that's what movies were originally for. Movies were a way to teach people about certain aspects of life. When Harry Met Sally, the story, the moral of that story is men and women can never be friends. Sex will always get in the way.
Right.
That was the moral of the story. And while people remember it as being like very funny, there was still an underlying message that they're trying to teach people. The best movies are when there's a message to be taught. Whether you disagree with the message or not, it's important to understand there's still a story to be told with a powerful message, and that's why some of these movies that you see in the Oscars, they have a message.
Yes.
But just nobody goes sees it because they want to see it for the entertainment side of things.
Right,
and if you combine the two together, I think that would make for something interesting.
That's true. That's very true. You know, because I'm thinking of some of my favorite movies, and honestly, I picked them because they had a humorous component, because I love to laugh. I mean, it just makes me feel like $1 million. I'll share with you two of my favorite movies, and maybe you've seen them. You probably have. One is Pretty Woman.
Yes.
The other is Overboard.
Never heard of that one.
You never have. Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell are in it. And the reason I loved it is because it had a little conflict. It had a complete story. It really told it was an open book in the beginning, and it closed the book at the end, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
And I left feeling wonderful, and better yet, I left learning something about myself.
Exactly.
And that Pretty Woman, that happened, because there's lessons to be learned, and that's what I yearn for in a film. How about you?
I'll use an example that my first movie that I can remember that wasn't a Disney movie.
Yes.
I was 6 years old. It was Christmas Day, actually. I got this little VHS tape. I opened it up. It's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I had no idea what this movie was.
Right.
My parents got it for me because they were like, we watched this movie growing up. You've never heard of this actor, Gene Wilder. He's great. You'll love him. And I watched it, and I was absolutely amazed by it, because the lesson in that story is you stay true and kind to yourself, the awards will come to you in the end.
That's true.
Because
that's good to live by, right?
I mean, Charlie, he was probably the only kid out of the 5 that got to go into the chocolate factory, and he was the only one that made it, that got all the rewards at the end, because he could have just taken his candy to another company and put Wonka out of business. But no, he decided, no, here's your candy, I'm just going to take it and leave. I'm not going to get the factory, whatever. And then Wonka turns around and says, you won. You did. I tested you. You passed the test. You're going to run my factory for the rest of your life.
That's incredible.
And so that's a message that I have taken to heart since I was about 6 years old. And that's my favorite movie of all time.
Look at that. Look at that. Because at 6 years old, a movie had an impact in your life. You carried that message in a positive respect through the rest of your life. And that, I would imagine, is what a producer or a director or even a writer of a film, that would be their goal. Do you think?
Yes, because every producer wants to, if they read a script that they like and it's something that touches them, they're going to go forward with it. Their vision would be to carry this and try to make it the best example of what they envision or what they think a director should envision.
Yes.
And if you don't have that vision, and this is something that I teach in my leadership workshops, if you have a vision and you have to get other people involved in that vision also. It's not just one person. There's also inspiration that you can get from cast, crew, to follow that same vision, to get people to follow along that same message, because you got to believe in it. And if you don't believe it, the movie's not going to turn out good.
That's true.
We'll take Moonlight. Moonlight was all about, a kid gets bullied because he's gay, and the message of that is don't be afraid to tell anybody about your problems. If you keep it inside, you're gonna go through all the pains that the main character goes through. And every single actor that is interviewed for this movie has gone through the same thing. The director and the screenwriter went through the exact same thing. Everybody is in tune with that message, and everybody was on a creative mindset where it's like, you're going in this direction, we're going to follow you in that direction.
Okay.
So that's important, as I feel.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So, Joe, we're going to take a break for just a moment. In a moment, we will be back, and we're going to talk more about films with Joe. asked a lot of times, what are the goals of PlumbTalk? And honestly, that's a question that's a little difficult in a way to answer because we have so many goals. But, learning from past mistakes, I have taken these goals and we've kind of condensed them into really two different realms of goals. Number one is we aim to educate the community, and that is a very important thing for us. We are a resource, and how I like to explain that is, in our lives, a lot of us go through some trying times, and we like to, here at PlumbTalk, describe our life as a puzzle. And, any puzzle has pieces, and all of our pieces to the puzzle in our life are different. And there are times in our life, and I'm sure you can relate to this, when those pieces of the puzzle either become loose or, they're missing altogether, and we need that information. We need something to put that piece back together again. And that's what PlumbTalk aims to do. We aim to be the resources that you can really take that information and put your piece of the puzzle back together again. And we do that through many different avenues. One, and you probably have seen this, is we interview specialists in different areas. And again, that's what we're trying to do, is to bring information in to put the pieces of the puzzle back together again. So we aim to be a resource. That's one of our major goals. The second thing is our production arm that we have. And our production arm is a little different than, what typical production companies do. Our major aim with our production is to give businesses out there a voice that helps them to get their message across in a way that nobody else can. And we do that in several different ways. We are a full service production company, and we do everything from creating a program, to writing the script, to coaching on how to speak properly in front of a camera, and editing. We have state-of-the-art editing techniques. So PlumbTalk has many different goals, but they really focus on those two major arms. We aim to be a resource, and we aim to help businesses out there get their voice known and heard like it's never been heard before. Such engaging conversation. We're having such a wonderful chat here with Joe. Really. One thing I want to touch on before I forget is before the interview, we're talking about some resources that you go to for movies and reviews and everything. Is there any helpful tips maybe you can extend to our viewers with regards to that? Say we're looking for a movie and we really don't know who to trust as far as what the movie's about.
The best way that I would go about it is don't just focus on one website.
Okay.
Because a lot of people make the mistake of, I saw it on Rotten Tomatoes, therefore Rotten Tomatoes is the Bible in terms of movies. People have said that since it first came out. That's not your only source of information. I will say, if you want to find something, take it from multiple sources. Go to Rotten Tomatoes, Metacritic, IMDb. A lot of other places do their own reviews. People on YouTube do their own movie reviews. I know that my super group on YouTube has been doing that for 5 years. We reach to a different audience. You got to find somebody that caters to your needs.
Right.
Not everybody has the same needs. One of the things that I do when I try to tell people to go see certain films is I try to understand who they are first. Because if you don't know the person, you can't recommend something that they're going to like. I could say to you, hey, why don't you go see Deadpool? Deadpool obviously made like $300 million. Everyone went to see it. Everybody loved it. You'll probably love it. And then you come back to me the next day, it was like, nah, I didn't like it. I was like, it was too violent for me.
It depends on who you are. You're right.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I always make it a point. It's like, okay, you're this kind of moviegoer. I'll recommend this person to you, or I'll recommend this website to you. It's a matter of best way, do some research. That's the best advice that I can give to people.
Okay, so here is the question of the moment. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I would love to know what Joe's top 3 picks for films, maybe different types of films, that are out now or just recently have gone out of the theaters.
Okay.
That's a hard one, isn't it?
I know, it is. But,
The pressure.
I actually have a couple in my head.
Okay.
The one, I mentioned Moonlight before.
Yes.
That was my favorite movie last year, and I actually thought that, and I'm glad that that won. Like, when La La Land won for like the first
Right.
20 seconds, our own,
That's right,
yeah,
20 seconds.
our own Ashley Walters, the weekday morning anchor, she actually was at the Oscars, and she was telling me all the confusion that was going on during that whole thing. And, you know, I wanted Moonlight to win so badly because I felt like nothing was as more emotional than that. That movie brought me to tears, actually.
Is that right?
Yeah, there's very few movies that make me cry. I'm not somebody that cries a lot, but just feeling the pain that that kid goes through throughout his 20 years of life, that's something that I can relate to. So
Yes.
I know that that hit me hard more than anything. There's a second movie that came out a few years ago. It was called Boyhood.
Boyhood.
Boyhood was a movie that was shot over a 12-year period. They used the same cast. They started back in 2002, and each year they did a scene as the years went by with the same cast. So by
that right?
at the beginning of the movie, they're very young. Ethan Hawke, he was about 20. He was like in his late 20s when he started out the movie, and by the time the movie ended, he was in his 30s. And they're all. It is shot. It was shot. And it's the same actors, so by the time they're all grown and everything, so it's
Right.
like shot from the main character. He was 7 when he started shooting, and by the time he was done shooting, he was at like 18, 19 years old.
Oh my goodness.
So it's one of the actually only few films that was actually shot over a lengthy, long period of time. But that's also a story about the problems of going through as a child, going through your teenage years, going through your high school years, and what life is like as you grow into an adult. Every child goes through that, and whether you're going through whether your parents are going through a rough divorce, whether you're in an abusive family, it covers all of those things. And while I may necessarily have never gone through that, I can understand the pain of what that's like.
Right,
And
right, absolutely.
You don't get that from a lot of movies. And I remember seeing that, and I was deeply touched by it. And the one thing.
What a unique perspective, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because you think about, like I'm thinking about my life right now, and having never really thought about how I thought as a child, how I thought as a adolescent, and how I'm thinking now, for example, that movie kind of brings you through those stages, right?
Exactly.
And what it does is it kind of forces you to think about
Exactly.
yourself, right? Yeah.
Like I said, best movies are when you can actually think and you can have a discussion with somebody afterwards.
Yes, right.
If all you do is just say, "Oh, that was so great. You remember this scene, and this scene," and it was all just action stuff, yeah, that's fine for popcorn or movie nights, but the ones that really make you think are the best ones.
Yes, so true. So true. So I thank you so much for joining us today. You're a wealth of knowledge. You really are.
Yeah.
And so for viewers out there, and I know a lot of them may have questions, if they want to contact you or learn more about what you do or even more about films, where would you point them?
Okay, I have a YouTube channel actually.
Oh, great.
What I do is the name of the YouTube channel is Joe Dini. It's Joedini.
Okay.
What I do is I do an internet audio show where I talk about internet celebrities and how they have transformed the internet into what it is today. And I'm also doing, which I'm starting on Saturday, I'm doing a little Shakespeare mini-series where I go over all the Shakespeare stories. And I'm starting my own style of movie reviews where I go live and I talk about them, and then people can jump in and they can actually hear me giving analysis on things.
That is wonderful. So if we're wondering about movies, that would be a good resource, wouldn't it? Because
Yes.
we'll find out firsthand what's going on with the movie.
Yeah, I'm starting that in May, and then around August, I'm also going to be starting, I mentioned to you before the show started, I'm going to start a little movie club where a group of us are going to be in this club. We're going to pick a movie, we're going to watch it on our own, and then afterwards we're going to do a live show talking about the movie. So we could be talking about a movie that you've probably seen in the 70s or the 60s. We could be talking about the Godfather movies for all we know.
Sure.
It's just a matter of which we want to pick, what's going to be appealing to people, and it could be even something recent. So we're going to be covering a whole bunch of stuff.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
That's really great. All right, well, you know what? We'll get that link up so everybody can see as well. Okay, wonderful. Well, on behalf of the entire PlumbTalk team, I want to thank you for joining us.
Oh,
This
thank
has
you.
been so great, so
Thank you.
great. And for all you viewers out there, this has been another edition of From the Hip. We have been so excited. What a great, great day. We will be back tomorrow with a new topic.